Hey everyone, the past year especially, as well as the past couple years, Hasbro has kind of been checking all of the boxes on all of our wish lists. With Starkiller, the Super Battle Droid, a lot of stuff has been coming out lately that has really been completing a lot of people's most wanted figures, which I think is really cool, but yet there are still a couple figures that if you just started collecting today, you would be shocked to find out that they don't exist in the Black Series, so that's what we're going to talk about today. So this is not a wish list, and this is not going to contain any current media or figures from the last couple years necessarily, more just iconic, egregious omissions in the Black Series. So the Super Battle Droid would have been number one if they hadn't just revealed that. And this list is a little bit contentious because things that may seem like obvious choices to me might not be the same to someone that grew up with the Clone Wars instead of the original trilogy, for instance. But I think we can all agree on a lot of these, starting with Lobot. Star Wars and action figures are so tied together that there are a lot of characters that a lot of us grew up with as figures that kind of became iconic in their own right, more from the toys rather than their actual presence in the films, such as Boba Fett and The Empire Strikes Back. And Lobot just feels like one of the few original trilogy characters that just has no representation in the line yet, that just seems kind of like something's missing. Nine Numb is also a character that I am shocked that we have not gotten yet, especially since you can get away with some reuse here. A pretty important original trilogy character that is just such an iconic part of that OT alien weirdness. This is one of those characters that even casual Star Wars fans could probably name, and a character that if I just started collecting today, I would probably go out and look for on eBay or something, and I would be pretty surprised to see that he had just never been made. Another original trilogy classic would be the Imperial Gunner, especially since you can get away with a lot of reuse here and just use the Death Squad commander body. All you need is a new helmet and a new vest overlay. Super simple. Hot Toys has done it, Vintage Collection has done it, he's just been in every line, and it's just such a cool looking, iconic part of the original trilogy. I don't know why we haven't got him yet. The Clone Wars Darth Maul came out last year, and that was an instant classic, and now it feels extra egregious that we do not have Savage Opress in the Black Series yet. This may need to be a deluxe because he is quite large, but I think the popularity of Darth Malgus and how well that has sold just kind of goes to show that even if characters aren't super big in the overall Star Wars story, maybe a lot of casual original trilogy and even prequels kids wouldn't know who this character is. But a cool looking action figure is a cool looking action figure, and I think that this would sell great. I'm gonna be surprised if we don't see him revealed in the next year. I know I said I wouldn't cover much new media, but I think the Book of Boba Fett has been out long enough that it's pretty shocking that we haven't seen Boba with his look from this show. I don't want to spend too much time on this because I'm kind of breaking my own rules here, but considering that this is one of the main heroes of the Mandoverse, I feel like we should have gotten him in the Black Series already. Although that Mandalorian Boba, all 4 versions of him that we got came out so recently that I suppose that's why they haven't gotten around to it yet, but I hope we see it soon because it's a pretty cool looking outfit. It was so hard to figure out what should and shouldn't be on this list because you really go down the line of aliens and there are so many characters like Snaggletooth or background Cantina aliens that I think would make sense in the Black Series and would be really cool, but for some reason the Max Rubo Band just seems a little bit more significant and important, a little bit more featured. They're very recognizable and you see merchandise for the Max Rubo Band all over Disneyland. We see a lot more representation of these guys overall in the Star Wars merchandise universe, which is why I think it's just a little bit stranger that they don't exist in the Black Series. I think this would need to be some sort of convention exclusive. Really tricky here in terms of not being able to ever reuse these molds because they're so specific, but I hope we see these someday. Similar to the Super Battle Droid and Droideka, I think the next droid that they will tackle is the Commando Droid. This is such a cool character that appears in Battlefront, and of course in the upcoming Star Wars Outlaws game. I am 99% sure we're gonna see a mold for this come out with a soft goods trench coat that will then be reused for the Jedi Survivor look or the Clone Wars. I hope this has a nice solid feel to it, unlike the Magna Guard, but can't believe they haven't made this yet, but I would be really shocked if we don't see it in the next couple years. I kind of wanted to have a rule with this list where I wouldn't pick different looks of characters that already exist in the Black Series, but I think that prequel Yoda is so different from his original trilogy appearance, so much more action focused that I am just shocked that we haven't gotten this one yet. With today's engineering and all of the stuff that they're able to squeeze into such tiny figures, I am kind of glad that they waited to make this one if they ever do decide to do it, but hopefully it comes out soon. With the different droid depot packs that they've done, or just random droids that they've thrown in over the years, I'm surprised that we haven't seen a Gonk droid yet. I think this would be an amazing inclusion. They could put it in one of those droid depot packs, they can put it as a deluxe accessory for Pel Moto or any other figure that they may decide to put out in the future. Even pack it in with a Jawa and a couple pit droids. Not a super important character, but just such a silly, iconic part of Star Wars that I would have expected to see it by now. And since repaints are so simple, I think it's pretty crazy that we've only seen the one version of the beige battle droid. Yes, we got like 3 other battle droids on the mold from different video games and stuff, and from the Geonosis arena, but I think getting this deco onto these droids would be so cool and such a cool way to just reuse that mold. I would love to see the yellow, the pink, and the blue battle droids come to the line. Total simple army builder pack, throw in a basic B1 at the same time. The battle droid mold is surprisingly good for when it came out. I think it's pretty sturdy and I don't really have too much trouble with them. Overall, they don't stand great. With nothing that's this skinny with such small feet is going to stand great, but I'd be happy to see more repaints on that mold. I kind of understand why this wouldn't be a super popular action figure, but Pel Moto is probably the character in The Mandalorian with the most lines that doesn't have an action figure. When they released the Pit Droid in the Droid Depot pack, I was almost certain that we would get a Pel Moto release with the Pit Droids packed in just to kind of sweeten up the package a little bit, but instead we're getting R5 with the pit droids, and so I feel like the odds of Pel Moto ever coming out have maybe gotten quite low, if not completely slashed. Since they're on such a prequel kick, it would be really cool to see Watto. I feel like this was a pretty significant face of the Phantom Menace in terms of the marketing and the merchandise back in 1999. Although I think you definitely need to release young Anakin before you release Watto, which is hopefully what they're doing, and I hope that we see a Watto come to the Black Series in the near future, because he's just such a cool looking character, and I think this would look really nice in figure form. While we're on the prequels here, I think the biggest omission from the Black Series in the Attack of the Clones area would be Zam Wessell. She is just such an action figure-y looking character, so toyetic. Give us that alternate faceplate like we got with the Hoth Rebel Trooper so we can give her a little alien appearance here. We got Aura Singh, and although she's a cool looking character, she's significantly less important to the story. She's only in the Phantom Menace for like 1 second. I know she has a bigger role in the Clone Wars, but Zam is just prime prequel coolness to me, and I hope we see her soon. There are a lot of really cool characters in Star Wars that just wouldn't be great action figures necessarily, but when there's a character like Marin from Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor that is so toyetic and just so cool looking, it's just crazy to me that this isn't just like immediately on shelves even before the game comes out. I'm sure a lot of parts of her story were maybe a bit of a surprise, and we do have about an 18-month pipeline for new figures coming out. She did have a pretty big role in the first game, so I'm surprised that we didn't see her already just from that. Although I think that the Jedi franchise just kind of took off, especially over the last couple years. That wasn't necessarily as big when the first game came out, and so hopefully we see her coming pretty soon. I'd say we got a bit few too many figures from the sequels during that era, although Rise of Skywalker Finn and Poe, even though there's a lot of disagreement about the movies themselves, I think that these come up a lot in people's wish lists, and everyone kind of liked these characters regardless of how you felt about the films. These are such cool looks for these characters, and I think if you release them both, and we already have an amazing Rey from the Rise of Skywalker, so we already have context on our shelves for these figures, and with Finn coming to the Vintage Collection finally, it's clear that they've not totally put the sequels behind them, and so hopefully we can see these figures released pretty soon. I wasn't planning on doing this, but as I started making this video, I realized that I have customs of a lot of these figures, which makes sense that the figures that I feel like are missing are ones that I would either make myself or seek out from other customizers, and so I figured, since it's always fun to look at actual figures, I would show you kind of some of the ones on this list and our solution to these not existing in the Black Series. This was a Watto that was supposed to be for the Legends, like really tiny tabletop set, and I scaled that up and printed it and had my friend Tim from Tim's Toys paint it for me. And then these are Figuarts Yoda from the prequels that I think are great. They've unfortunately gotten very expensive. I also have the Zam Wessell figure that I made very early on in my customizing. Her face is kind of a mess, but I used the G.I. Joe body, a head that I bought from I think Outer Rim Traders, and then a skirt piece from a Black Panther figure. I like the way that turned out. It's not my favorite custom I've done. I made this battle droid the other day. It's definitely the newest figure on my shelf. It was pretty simple. I just had to tape off certain areas and then just go ahead and paint carefully with a brush. I would love to see some of these repaints. And then also this Palpatine next to him, it's a head by Fett clone. Then I use the Severus Snape torso, and then the skirt piece I think is from a Buffy figure. Next we have this Lobot. I think I got the head from Watto's scrapyard. The body is Lando, and then the arms are from the Kang figure, or He Who Remains, I think. And then this Leia I didn't include on the list because I don't want to do alternate appearances for characters that we have a ton of figures of. More focus on figures that we have never got before. This 9 Num is actually just a Rose Tico body with a General Leia vest, both super cheap figures to get. And then I forget where I got the head, but Frederick's Figures painted that up for me. I found an artist on Instagram called Hoth Cave that does this Imperial Gunner kit, and all it is the helmet and this shoulder piece. All you do is pop the head off, put the vest on, put the helmet on, and then you've got your Imperial Gunner. Just goes to show how simple it is, and really surprising that Hasbro hasn't done that yet. I made this Pel Moto kit for my Patreon because I'm not good at painting faces, so it's just a Rose Tico body with a Dana Barrett Ghostbusters head, and the welding mask, the tools, and then the pouches on her belt are all just resin printed. Super easy, and it really feels like the character to me. And she also has a BD droid, so why don't we get her out in the line, have her come with a pit droid, a BD droid. I think it's time. It's also time for a Boba Fett. So this is actually the SH Figuarts Boba. I 3D printed a Kama in resin because I didn't like the soft goods one that it came with. It just kind of flapped all over the place. And then this is a custom head by Fett clone, kind of completing this character. The show is fairly recent in the action figure timeline, so maybe that's why we haven't seen him yet. Maybe they're waiting to see if there's another season coming out, or waiting till he shows up in something else to release it, but I guess we will wait and see. I have a good amount of customs on my sequel shelf here, a lot of those Leias from Tim's Toys, but he also made this Rise of Skywalker Finn and Poe. These just show how cool these characters would look as action figures. I'm really happy with the ones that I have. I would just wish that they were available for more people. One of the highlights of my collection is this Max Rubo Band that was painted for me by Frederick's Figures. These were 3D printed with files from CG Trader that I highly recommend. They're probably the best version of Max Rubo Band that you can get in your collection. And then I resin printed and painted this Gonk droid, and this really just goes to show how easy, like, you don't need any articulation at all. I think if this came on its own in a box, it would need some sort of articulation or some sort of gimmick, but I think in a droid multi-pack or like as an accessory, it wouldn't need any sort of articulation. So if you saw some stuff in my collection here that you'd like to know more about, I do have an entire collection tour video on my channel, and it's almost time to do an update because these 2 bottom shelves are new. Let me know in the comments below if I missed any like really obvious characters that just are, you're completely shocked that they haven't done them in the Black Series yet. I think wish lists are really fun too, but this is more of just like, how have they not done these? Anyway, I hope we see some of these figures on shelves soon. In the meantime, here are some videos from my channel that you might enjoy. As always, thank you for watching. Please hit that like button, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you all next time.